Hello, everyone. We're just about to get started here. Thank you for sharing those thoughts in that quick poll. I'm going to end that right now. And let's get started. So thank you all so much for joining today's webinar. We're so pleased that you're joining us today, and I'm excited to get started. Today, we want to equip you with some tools to sell more tickets and fill more seats. Specifically, we're going to talk about how using AI for forecasting and dynamic pricing can help you do just that. So in today's webinar, we're going to start off with a bit of a broader context by sharing some insights about revenue management strategy. We'll tell you about why artificial intelligence is well suited to helping with revenue management. And we'll talk specifically about how machine learning can help with forecasting and dynamic pricing. But first, let's start with some introductions. My name is Jonathan Carpenter. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a white man in my early 40s with short brown hair and a beard. Today I'm wearing a blue sweatshirt and glasses. I'm based in Chicago, and today I'm in my home office, which is blurred behind me. And I am JCA's program manager for performing arts. So, in addition to consulting with our clients on pricing and revenue management, I work with our performing arts clients and consultants to make sure that our offerings are meeting your needs.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Nemeth. I'm a white woman with long curly dark hair wearing a blue floral shirt today, and my home office is blurred behind me. I am based in the DC area. I am a manager on JCA's professional services team. I've been with JCA for 8 years, and I've been doing pricing consulting for that entire 8 years, among many other data analysis, insights, and strategy projects. And I'm excited to talk with you all today.
Thanks, Jennifer. So, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with JCA, those of you on today's call, I'd love to tell you a little bit more about us. We're a consulting firm that's been around since 1988 that's dedicated to serving nonprofit organizations. The consulting that we provide for organizations is all about helping you leverage your data to drive your mission. We help nonprofits leverage data and technology to do more, perform better, and dream bigger. We work to make sure that every JCA engagement delivers actionable insights and clear next steps. Our clients never wonder what's next or how to move forward. We provide a clear, confident path to impact. And while JCA serves a broad nonprofit community, we deliver specialized expertise to the performing arts community through our dedicated JCA Performing Arts Division. This group is focused on helping performing arts organizations turn data into actionable insights that fuel strategy and drive success. We help organizations manage their data ecosystems, glean insights from their data, and use those insights for strategy. We're most known for our work in pricing and audience analysis. And we have a track record of collaborating with hundreds of institutions, including theaters, operas, symphonies, dance companies, and performing arts centers. We understand the unique opportunities and challenges of the performing arts sector. Our expert consultants bring both industry knowledge and data driven expertise to help your organization thrive. Our pricing clients report an ROI of 3 to 1, and we've even seen an ROI as high as 75 to 1. In addition to the consulting work that JCA does on pricing, we've also developed our premier revenue management tool that helps our clients leverage their data in Tessitura to get a complete view of their ticket sales, allowing them to make strategic decisions quickly that move them closer to their goals. It's called Vivian. Vivian leverages AI to give you fast forecasting and dynamic pricing decisions. It also gives you the analysis that you need to make decisions about each piece of your revenue management strategy, from house scaling to discounting. Our pricing experts built the tool so the reports are specifically created for revenue management and have our expertise built in for ease of use. Ultimately, Vivian is the only full suite revenue management tool for performing arts organizations on Tessitura. So, while we're going to be focusing today specifically on forecasting and dynamic pricing, we wanted to briefly zoom out to introduce these topics and acknowledge that forecasting and dynamic pricing are just two pieces of your overall revenue management strategy. And what do we mean by that? Well, we believe that your revenue management strategy should be rooted in value based pricing and have distinct tactics for optimizing starting prices, house scaling, forecasting and goal setting, discount strategy, dynamic pricing, and inventory management. And I'll mention just briefly here that these are all areas where Vivian is equipped to help you make fast, data driven decisions. And while we're zoomed out, I wanted to take just a moment to share a little bit more about our pricing philosophy at JCA, which informs everything that we're going to be talking about today. At JCA, our pricing philosophy is based in behavioral economics, and it's rooted in four core tenets. First, data is queen. The pricing strategies that we recommend to our clients are rooted in rigorous analysis of behavioral and attitudinal data to understand demand and willingness to pay. Next, every organization is unique. We reject one size fits all pricing models. Instead, we tailor strategies to reflect the distinctive characteristics of each organization's offerings and the interests and behaviors of their audiences. Next, starting strong and optimizing continuously. Setting the right prices for on sale is essential for maximizing revenue in reaching your goals, but maximizing revenue for the long term requires ongoing optimization. Using demand and income modeling as well as dynamic pricing, we ensure that prices align with an organization's growth and its evolving audience. And finally, pricing with purpose. Pricing isn't just about maximizing revenue, it's also a communication and accessibility tool. Through our innovative radical pricing approach, we help organizations develop models that promote inclusivity and reflect their values, making audiences feel welcomed and valued. And with that introduction on the big picture about revenue management, I'm going to turn things over to Jennifer to talk about AI.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. So today's webinar is about how to harness AI for forecasting and dynamic pricing in the arts. So let's jump into that. Before I say more, though, we are curious to hear from you. So we're going to launch another poll just to ask, what is the first thing that comes to mind when we say artificial intelligence? And Jonathan, I actually can't see the answers here. So if you want to jump in and talk a little bit about what you're seeing.
Absolutely. Just a second. All right. I'm seeing a little bit about, I'm giving people just a second as answers are trickling in here. Let's see. Seeing a little bit about Chat GPT. I'm seeing machine learning. Interesting answers. So they're kind of all across the board.
Awesome. Great. Um, well, we'll get a little bit more specific here in what we're talking about when we're talking about artificial intelligence. One more question, though. I'm just also curious, this will be one more poll. How frequently are you using AI in a professional setting?
And as the early results are coming in, it looks like people are saying once a week or more. About 50% of people are saying that they use AI in a professional setting once a week or more,
Awesome.
and about
Great.
10% that have not used AI in a professional setting at all.
Okay. Awesome. So we've got some experts on the call here. Great. Well, we'll keep going then, and talk a little bit about what we mean when we say AI. So there's a lot of resources out there, and I suspect based on your answers here that many of you have been doing a lot of reading and a lot of kind of practicing of using AI. But to make sure that we all have a shared understanding, I do want to kind of briefly answer three big questions that come up when people talk about AI. So first of all, what is artificial intelligence? What is AI? So artificial intelligence refers to the simulation of human intelligence in machines, and those machines are programmed to think and learn and make decisions. Next, what is the difference between AI and machine learning? Well, AI is the broader concept of machines being intelligent, while machine learning is a method used to achieve AI through data driven learning. And so then specifically, what is machine learning? Machine learning is a subset of AI that enables systems to learn from data and improve their performance over time without being explicitly programmed to improve their performance. So using machine learning over other types of AI is often preferred when the goal is to learn from data and to continue to improve automatically. The first commercial use of machine learning was actually in the 80s and early 90s, with more adoption in the 2000s and continuing to have more and more adoption over the years. So the thing about machine learning is that it continuously gets better the more good data that it has. And as it so happens, the business of selling tickets provides us with very large data sets. So, a theater company that sells a 500-seat venue that runs a production 8 times a week for 3 weeks, that can result in 12,000 tickets. And that's just one production. Multiply that by several productions in a season over the course of several seasons, we end up with a really large data set. And it's definitely possible for humans to analyze this data set. We do it. I'm sure many of you on this call do that for your organizations as well. But it's time consuming, it's challenging. AI really excels at analyzing massive data sets very quickly. It sifts through all of that complex information and it actually uncovers trends and insights that humans often might miss. So we see two areas where AI can really help us with revenue management. The first is forecasting. You have this historical data that shows how your customers behave, you know, their buying patterns, when they buy, what they buy, where in your venue. And if you have a thorough understanding of all of these trends, you could use them to look forward and apply them to create a forecast of how you might expect your upcoming productions to sell. The other area is dynamic pricing. There are tons of indicators in your sales data when your prices might need to be adjusted, and we can watch for these. I suspect many of you have reports set up to do just that. But we're limited. We're limited by time and resources, and this can be a really time consuming process. Sometimes there just aren't enough hours in the day. So, this is definitely an area where AI can help. It can look for those indicators in your data, recommend changes that might be easy to miss through a manual process. So hopefully that helps you start to see the benefits of using AI in these cases. But I really want to clarify why these cases are ideal for AI tools. Machine learning for forecasting is highly effective because it offers several advantages over traditional statistical models and other AI approaches. First of all, machine learning can capture complex patterns very well. Learning models can detect nonlinear relationships, hidden patterns in data that traditional models like linear regression or something else might miss. And like I already mentioned, machine learning is really good at handling very large and diverse data sets. And then finally, machine learning adapts to changing trends. So machine learning models can be retrained regularly to reflect new patterns, new behaviors, which really makes them ideal for dynamic environments like a ticketing data set. So with that, I will pass things over to Jonathan to talk about the first of these topics, which is forecasting.
Thanks, Jennifer. So, with that larger context on revenue management and AI helping us to set the stage, let's really focus on forecasting. We've already talked a little bit about forecasting, but I want to go deeper. Your organization may be relying on many different types of forecasts. You might create a forecast for your subscription sales. You might create a forecast for a specific production. You might create one overarching forecast for your entire season. Ultimately, what we're trying to do with a forecast is make a prediction about how many tickets we're going to sell and how much revenue we're going to bring in, and perhaps over what sort of timeline. Forecasts are very helpful because they provide your organization with financial clarity. They can help you identify where you're likely to have a hit production that will sell strongly and where you may be facing lighter sales and possible revenue shortfalls. And I do want to clarify before I get too much further that although goal setting and forecasting go hand in hand, they're not the same. You can forecast or reforecast at any point in the sales cycle, where a goal is typically something you set at the beginning of the season and leave because it's built into your budget. Like I said, you can forecast or reforecast at any time in the sales cycle. And in fact, this is something we'd encourage you to do so that you can continue to get a clear, up to date picture of where your production might end up relative to those goals you set heading into the season and based on actual sales data. So, how do organizations actually go through the exercise of creating a forecast, particularly without the help of some kind of tool to do it? Well, there are a lot of times that organizations simply guess or estimate, perhaps as a bit of an oversimplification, but you can look at an upcoming production and make an estimate that it will reach a particular percentage of its overall financial capacity based on your knowledge of your audience and the title in question. And you can then use that to come up with an expected revenue number. This is very quick and dirty, but it's still helpful. And it's easy to replicate and reforecast from this way of looking at forecasting. If sales look strong, you simply increase that percentage of capacity you think you're going to reach, and you can very quickly multiply and get to a new number. The next level of sophistication would be to use some kind of Excel workbook or chart to track calculations to get a little bit more granular. You might create formulas that perform a similar calculation to the one that I just described, but you can introduce more nuance and sophistication. For example, instead of just selecting one overall financial capacity number for an entire production season, you could start to look at smaller component parts, like individual performances or different ticket types. You might forecast that your weekend matinees are going to reach 90% of their capacity, but your weekday evenings are only going to reach 70% of their capacity. You might create separate forecasts for subscribers and single ticket buyers. You likely expect different average yields from these different ticket types, so you can create a more accurate overall forecast by making smaller, more focused predictions along the way. And once you've created those smaller calculations based on the component parts, you can add them together to get a full picture for an entire production season. And you may be wondering, well, how can you approximate an upcoming production sales? Where we recommend starting is by finding appropriate comparator productions. For example, if you're ready to produce, as I'm sure many of you are, The Nutcracker or A Christmas Carol this December, you might look back at the past several years' productions of those same titles. Finding those appropriate comparator productions can help you in forecasting by giving you a sense of what you can expect for key metrics like percentage of capacity sold, average yield, sales velocity, and more. One word of caution here: we strongly encourage you to use recent comparators when you're building out forecasts. We'd always encourage you to use fresh, recent data, and this is particularly true when looking for comparators because so much has changed since the pandemic. Even if the title of a pre 2020 production might feel relevant, the rest of the data might not be. So think carefully about what productions you're using to draw comparisons. Let's look at an example of how you might forecast for an upcoming production. So I'm looking at this season's fall production of Carmen, and I'm expecting that it should sell like last season's fall production of La Boheme and the prior season's fall production of Tosca. And I have, from looking at those two comparators, I have a rough idea of the percentage of capacity I'm going to sell, what an average yield might be, and what the breakdown between subscribers and single ticket buyers might be. Now, we can do some quick multiplication to get a very rough estimate of where ticket sales might end up. We could get more granular and use the subscriber single ticket buyer ratio to craft separate forecasts for each individual performance in Excel. I want to say we could also use a forecasting tool to do that work for us. Vivian does have that capacity, so I want to show you an example of how we could use Vivian to do our forecasting. In Vivian Standard, you can actually use those comparator productions that you've selected to create helpful forecasts for both ticket sales and revenue, broken down by single tickets and subscriptions. There's a straightforward process of selecting comparator productions. You can see in this example that I've selected some comparators for my upcoming production of the Magic Flute. And once I've selected those, Vivian will create a forecast for me. This graph is looking at an individual performance of the Magic Flute. The x-axis represents time and the y-axis represents the number of tickets sold. Now you can see there are three curves here. There's a forecast curve created by Vivian. There's a goal curve, which is generated based on the goal numbers that I've input into Vivian. And there's a third curve showing my actual ticket sales. And you can see the end result here is fairly accurate. My actual ticket sales ended up just slightly ahead of Vivian's forecast. But what we see is that the sales velocity wasn't quite right. My forecast was ahead of my actual ticket sales until further in the sales cycle. So, looking at this, we know there's room to improve this forecast, but I hope you're seeing the gradual progression here from that back of the napkin calculation to using a tool. Even a basic forecast is helpful, but there's room to get even better and more specific based on how we're generating a forecast. So let's take the next step and talk about how we can use AI in forecasting. We've seen from the progression that we've talked through that we can improve the quality of our forecasts through specificity. By breaking down our production into smaller component parts, like individual performances and individual ticket types, we can craft a more specific and therefore hopefully more accurate forecast. And another key step, as we've talked about, is identifying those appropriate comparator productions. Now, one thing that is unfortunate but true is that human memory is fallible. We might remember our organization's blockbusters pretty clearly, but our memory, I certainly know mine would be, our memory might be a little hazy when it comes to exactly how every individual production and performance performed 2 or 3 seasons back. We need to pick the right comparators in order to have reasonable numbers to build our forecast. And we might be limited by our memory, or if not our memory, at least our ability to sort through the data to find those appropriate comparators. So, what we're talking about here are more calculations to obtain greater specificity, and we're talking about pattern recognition to identify the right comparators. And if you think back to what Jennifer was saying about AI earlier, you may already see how AI can really help us with forecasting. So, to reiterate and go back to what Jennifer was saying, machine learning is a subset of AI that enables systems to learn from data and improve their performance over time without being explicitly programmed. Using ML over other types of AI is often preferred when the goal is to learn from data and improve performance automatically. So, machine learning is well suited for forecasting because it can handle the complexity and scale of ticketing data more effectively than other statistical methods. ML captures complex patterns in sales and audience behavior. That's the pattern recognition to find appropriate comparators. And it processes large, diverse data sets efficiently. That's the work to perform all of those specific calculations quickly and accurately. So, what does it look like to use AI in forecasting? Well, Vivian Advanced uses AI to create seats and revenue forecasts. Machine learning is applied to an organization's historical data for both subscription and single ticket purchases. Similar events at the same venue are grouped into what are called clusters, and a tailored model is built for each cluster. These models reflect that organization's event patterns, producing forecasts like the one we're seeing here. The more data the ML sees, the smarter it gets. So this is the AI forecast in Vivian Advanced for the same performance of the Magic Flute that we were looking at before. You can see the actual final number of tickets sold is once again, it's very close, and it's just slightly ahead of the forecast. If we were to go back and look, the AI forecast is even closer than our comparator forecast was. But the notable difference here is that the forecast and the actual curves are much closer in shape. That long tail of early sales isn't present in the AI forecast, and the curves are much more closely aligned, meaning my AI forecast gave me a clearer picture sooner into the sales cycle of what to expect. It also saved me the work of having to select the comparator productions. Less comparator hunting and less data analysis for me to do, more time back into my workday. So I hope that this dive into forecasting has given you some new ideas to consider for your organization. No matter how you're doing forecasting at your organization today, you can continue to iterate and improve the process by getting more specific. Greater specificity in the process will lead to clearer, more accurate forecasts. And I hope I've shown you that forecasting is a good use case for AI, particularly because there are key elements of the process that machines can handle more effectively and more efficiently than we can. And now I'll turn things over to Jennifer to talk about dynamic pricing.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. So I'm going to talk about dynamic pricing and specifically how AI is really able to help in this area as well. Before I dive into that, just some quick notes about kind of the what and why of dynamic pricing. First, when I talk about dynamic pricing, I'm specifically talking about changes made to prices during the sales cycle. So typically, those changes are going to be based on what you learn about demand that you might not have known before a performance went on sale. And then why would you do dynamic pricing? Well, dynamic pricing allows you to adjust those prices according to demand. Whether demand is higher or lower than you expected, it allows you to really respond to what you're seeing in real time. Because of that, dynamic pricing offers a lot of flexibility. Sometimes there are reasons you might set your starting prices a certain way, knowing that you might want to change them. Sometimes you don't want to implement a really big change for subscribers, for example. So you start lower, but then you have the ability to increase prices for single ticket sales as you need to. And then, of course, the idea behind dynamic pricing is that it's going to help you maximize revenue as well as maximizing tickets sold. Ultimately, that's the goal. So when it comes to dynamic pricing at JCA, there's kind of a few principles that guide us. The first is that the most important thing you can do is optimize your starting prices. You want to start strong, setting those prices right from the beginning. That's really going to make you the most money and be the easiest as compared to making a ton of dynamic pricing changes. But of course, dynamic pricing is a tool and a very helpful tool that allows you to adjust when those prices aren't quite right at the beginning. Dynamic pricing is going to allow you to optimize your revenue and your house fill based on that information that you learn during the sales cycle. In order for dynamic pricing to be effective, you need to monitor and make adjustments regularly. So, most of our clients are looking for dynamic pricing opportunities at least once a week, sometimes more often, especially during busy sales periods. And when you do find an opportunity, don't be shy about taking it. It's okay to be aggressive if demand calls for it. We often talk to organizations who have kind of an artificial top price that they don't want to go over. But if demand is telling you that your audience is willing to pay more, all you're really doing is missing out on revenue by not increasing those prices. So when it comes to manual dynamic pricing without AI, which I'm guessing a lot of you might be doing right now, there are a few things that make it challenging. If you have a lot of performances, and particularly if you have many different titles, it can be hard to keep track of them all. And then because of that, even the best manual system is bound to miss at least some opportunities, which means that you're not making as much money as you could be. And it can also be a tedious process, especially if you're looking at a lot of performances. It takes time to do the analysis, find all of your potential price changes, and then it also takes a significant amount of time to actually make those price changes, as I'm sure many of you can attest. So if you're doing dynamic pricing right now without AI, there are many different methods folks use and often combining a few methods. And some of those might include things like percent capacity triggers. So this is super common that an organization says once we reach a certain percentage sold on a performance or on a section, that's when we're gonna raise prices. And the advantage here is that it's really easy to track. Those percentage capacity numbers are pretty easy to get. But the disadvantage is that if something is selling really well, you've already missed the opportunity by the time you reach those triggers. And if something isn't selling well, even if it hits those triggers, you might not actually want to raise prices. So then another thing you might use is velocity triggers. That might help correct for just looking at capacity. This is something like once we're selling $5,000 a day, then we'll raise prices. But again, not a lot of nuance there to the decision making. So then organizations might also use timing triggers, like the week of the performance, we bump everything up by $5. The problem with this method is that you might have missed out on opportunities that were there earlier. And also increasing prices right before the performance actually might not be encouraging the buying patterns that you want or might not be the best for that particular performance. And then some folks also use their forecast for dynamic pricing, basically deciding that if a performance is ahead of forecast, they should go ahead and raise prices. So all of these methods have their pros and cons, and combining them can get to a pretty decent job of helping you make those dynamic pricing decisions. But they all require quite a bit of tracking, analysis, manual work to help you make those decisions. So this is where AI comes in. How can AI help? The great thing about machine learning is that it can make pricing recommendations to you so that you don't have to go through all of those manual processes and risk missing an opportunity. And the great thing about Vivian is that I know machine learning can sometimes feel scary to just trust blindly. So if you do want to double check the recommendations and kind of confirm them with your own processes, there's tons of reports available to you in Vivian to allow you to do that if you want to, especially as you're just getting started. But with AI, Vivian can track every single performance in a way that is just very, very hard to do manually. So you won't miss those opportunities to increase prices. AI can also analyze all of the measures that might affect dynamic pricing, all of the ones I just talked about, plus a whole bunch more. And it can do so basically instantaneously. So all of those recommendations are just coming from a much more robust place than any of your manual triggers are able to be. And all of that means that your pricing decisions can happen much more efficiently and your price changes can happen much more efficiently. So to kind of show you what that looks like, let's look at Vivian. So what you're seeing here is just a snapshot of the dynamic pricing screen. The zones are across the top, the individual performances are down the side, and for each performance in each zone, you see the current prices and the recommended prices. If I want to implement the recommended prices, it's as simple as checking that box to the left of the performance state. That's going to activate the row, fill in the new prices, and then I can edit them if I want to, or if I'm ready to make the changes, I just hit commit. If I do want to kind of do that double check for how a performance is doing, it's really easy to jump to that forecast curve that Jonathan showed us earlier. So here I can just click on an individual performance, pull up that curve. That's what you're seeing here. This is an individual performance. And I can see that in this case, my actual is well ahead of my forecast. So I can feel really good about raising these prices. And then, like I said, all I have to do is hit commit and I'll get this little pop-up that lets me choose the effective date and time for my price change. So I can set that date to be effective immediately. I can set it to 6 p.m. today, like you see here. I can set it to be effective at midnight, whatever my business practices are. Then I hit commit again, and that sends a price event right over to Tessitura. As soon as it's done spinning, I can go over and I can see that price event there. And you may be thinking, okay, so this is one price, right? This is my base price, probably my full single ticket prices. What about all of my other price types that I have to change every time I make a price change? Well, Vivian can handle those too. So what you're seeing here is one of the setup screens, and this is where you can set rules for every price type in every zone. So here you see the price types along the side, the zones across the top, and you can see that for my 20% off price type, I've told Vivian that this price should always be 20% less than my base price. So as my base price changes, this price type will change accordingly. At my particular organization, we don't offer this discount in sections 1, 4, 5, and 11. So those zones are set to same as base so that this price type in those zones will always match the base price instead of being discounted. And then I have the same setup for 25% off, 50% off. And then you see my group price type is set to no rule, which means Vivian won't touch that price type. It won't make any price changes. It's just going to leave it alone. So these rules are totally customizable for your organization. And you can even set rules for individual performances if you want to. So if those are different than your overarching rules, you can set those as well. The idea behind all of this is really to make your price changes so much faster and so much easier. So all you have to do is set that new base price and everything else is done for you. And then finally, the thing that is really great about dynamic pricing is how easily you can track your return. You can really track how much you're making from your dynamic pricing. So I wanted to show you the returns that current Vivian clients are getting from dynamic pricing. So these are the dynamic pricing amounts made by Vivian clients going back to 1819. Each column represents a different year. The blue bar is the average amount across all of our clients. And you are reading this right. The average for 24-25 was over $1 million. But of course, there's a few really high flyers that help pull that average up. So the green diamonds show you the median numbers, which are still in the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. So it's a lot of money that folks are bringing in from dynamic pricing. I can also tell you that the minimum amount we saw one of our clients make from dynamic pricing last year was about $60,000, well over the cost of a Vivian license. So even our smallest organizations are seeing really great returns from their investment in dynamic pricing. So with that, I will pass things back to Jonathan to bring it all together.
Thanks, Jennifer. We are in the home stretch, so let's bring this all together. We hope that we've given you some new ideas to consider today when it comes to your organization's overall revenue management strategy. While we focused on just two specific pieces of your overall strategy, namely forecasting and dynamic pricing, there's even more that goes into a comprehensive, holistic revenue management. Remember, data is queen. First and foremost, utilize your data to inform your strategy. It's your most powerful tool. And remember to start strong and optimize continuously. Forecasting is always a helpful way to provide greater financial clarity about upcoming ticket sales, and forecasting can continue to improve and get more useful the more specific it gets. AI, specifically machine learning, can be a really helpful tool in creating highly specific forecasts that improve over time. Dynamic pricing is a powerful tool to help you sell more tickets and maximize your revenue. And using AI to help identify dynamic pricing opportunities can help your organization get even more effective and more efficient with dynamic pricing. And finally, as we've hopefully driven home, both forecasting and dynamic pricing are excellent use cases for AI. We encourage your organization to start thinking about leveraging AI tools to help you manage these pieces of your revenue management strategy so you can sell more tickets and fill more seats. We've mentioned Vivian throughout today's webinar, and we've given you just a small glimpse into its capabilities, but we're very excited about what Vivian can do for your organization. So I wanted to close with just a few details about Vivian for those who are interested in learning more. Vivian is built for compatibility and security, ensuring smooth operations and data protection. Vivian is cloud-based and accessed via a web browser. It's compatible with Tessitura, both version 15 and 16, and it leverages the Tessitura API for smooth data flow. Deployment is flexible. It's available for both Tessitura hosted and self hosted organizations, and the data is updated nightly. Setup is quick and easy, and we have an enhanced data privacy. Vivian operates without collecting or storing any personally identifiable information, PII. Vivian's pricing is based on membership level and your organization's operating budget size. So we have the standard membership tier and the advanced membership tier. The biggest difference between the two tiers is that the advanced membership includes the AI features that we've been talking about today for predictive forecasting and dynamic pricing recommendations. The 2025 annual license cost is between $7,000 and $40,000 a year, depending on the various factors that I've mentioned. Additionally, Vivian clients participate in industry studies. Twice a year, JCA releases a trends in audience behavior report to look at sales and audience trends across North America. The data is pulled from Vivian, and our Vivian clients participate in the study. And we just presented our latest study this August at the Testatura conference. So that is it for our presentation. If you want to learn more about Vivian or request a demo, you can use the QR code, which will bring you to a form to request a demo, or you can go to jcainc.com/Vivian. We would be so happy to talk to you more about Vivian or our revenue management expertise. I am also going to launch a quick poll here. For anyone who would like to learn more about Vivian, you are also free to fill out this poll, and we'll follow up with you after today's webinar. And now we're eager to answer your questions about forecasting, dynamic pricing, or about Vivian. While we do that, I'll leave our contact info on the screen. And also, if you're interested in reading our most recent study in audience trends, I'm leaving a QR to download that on the study here too. So I will open up the question panel and we'll see what's come in. And I do see we have our first question here, which is there a way to see how different recommended pricing changes would impact the forecast in real time? And I'm assuming that question is specific to Vivian.
Yeah, I'll jump in and answer this one. And the answer is not right now, but it's on the roadmap. So at the moment, it does not show you exactly how the forecast will be impacted by price changes, but the plan is to have that added soon.
Thanks, Jennifer. I will continue to keep an eye on the question and answer. We have another.
Yeah. Is there a report that tracks incremental revenue? Yes, there are several. So there are reports that track incremental revenue in different ways, whether you want to see just increases, increases, and decreases. You can see that number per ticket, per performance, per any type of combination of performances you'd like. And then there are also some visual reports that show you things like that incremental income over time, by day of week, all of those sorts of things. So yes, lots of ways to track the results that you're getting.
And it looks like we have another question. Long shot, it is related to Vivian. Have you noticed that ticket buying behavior this season is later? And how does Vivian account for buying behavior that bucks the comparator norm? It's a great question.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to take it, Jonathan?
Yeah, go for it.
uh, yeah. So far, I don't think we've been seeing an overarching trend that ticket sales have been later. It's something we watch all the time because people ask that, but so far, no, we haven't been seeing that lately. And as far as accounting for unusual behaviors, I think the really awesome thing about AI is that it finds comparators in a way that we just would never even think to look. It works so differently than the way the human brain does, that it does a remarkably good job of forecasting, even for kind of strange things. There's always a chance you're going to do something that's truly, truly never done before, and it's not going to do a great job. But generally, even with strange behaviors, it finds other performances that looked like that we might not necessarily find. So that's the advantage of AI is it's able to find those things. Um, is there an exploration of offering this for other ticketing systems? Yes. We're looking into it. It's something we're considering. We just have to find the right ticketing systems and the right partners to work with. So yeah, it's something we're
Yeah,
always looking at. Right now, it is just Testura, but we've been talking about others. So if you have a specific system that you're on that you want us to explore, let us know.
yeah,
But something we're looking at. Nothing in the immediate future, but we're exploring it.
yeah. I was going to say, just to be clear, there is nothing in the immediate future, but we love to hear from folks who have interest in the product and would like it to integrate with a particular ticketing system. That helps us, as Jennifer's saying, explore those partners and tools.
Mhm.
We've got a question. What are we most excited about that is on the Vivian roadmap? It's a good question.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think I personally am excited to continue to improve these new features. These AI features have only recently kind of gotten in the hands of folks, and we're already recognizing, UI improvements and things like that that can really streamline the experience. And so I'm just excited to really continue to hone in on how to make the product really, really useful. It's not a specific answer, but there's been so much new lately that it's all exciting.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a flashy thing that excites me. It's, one thing we said throughout today's presentation is AI is something, AI and machine learning specifically are things that improve over time. And so to me, it's very exciting to see that in real time. And I think that's something that will continue. So that's what excites me the most.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so not on Vivian. Are there tips you would have for those of us who can't move to Vivian yet on testing certain forecasting or dynamic pricing predictions in more broadly available AI tools? Um, I'm going to be honest, I haven't worked with a lot of those AI tools in this way because we've been so focused on using Vivian.
Yeah.
So I can't say that I have a whole lot of recommendations in this area. I don't know if Jonathan, if you have anything to
Yeah, I
add.
mean, there of course where I go first are security concerns. You just of course want to be very careful about what you're plugging into publicly accessible models. Certainly you want to ensure that you're not using any patron data or any sort of PII in those models. Um, but really it's about the prompts, right? That's what I've learned about some of the more popular and widely accessible AI tools. So it's about the prompts, and so to look at forecasting, the section that I talked about, it's about giving it that specificity, to say, here is what I'm looking for, and here's here's the data that you can compare it to. What do you make of it? If you give it a very broad prompt, it's probably not going to be very successful. But if you can continue to hone and find greater specificity, um, that will help you. The other concept that I think is really interesting to introduce here is called human in the loop. Um, there's an idea that even though AI is great and smarter than us in many ways and able to do many things that humans can't because of our resources of time and resources, um, it is always really helpful to make sure that you're checking AI with those human pieces of context that you have that a general model simply couldn't. And so I think the idea is continue as you work on those prompts, continuing to review and refine. That's how you'll get to something I think that would be really beneficial for you and your organization.
Um, Last question I see here. Does Vivian ever suggest lowering prices? And if so, how does that work in the context of value-led pricing? For example, might Vivian decide you've overpriced from the start and repeatedly suggest price drops to compensate? Yes, Vivian does suggest lowering prices. So if it sees that something isn't selling, you've overpriced, it will recommend lowering them. I have not yet seen a scenario where Vivian decides you're so overpriced from the beginning that it lowers and lowers and wants to keep lowering prices. That's pretty rare. Even lowering prices in general is pretty rare. It's pretty unusual, but not impossible. I have seen scenarios where it thinks you're really underpriced and wants you to keep raising them, but not so much wanting to keep lowering them. So I haven't really seen that as a concern.
And I want to add, I mean, I think, Jennifer, this is something that we, as working with our pricing consultants, have also found. I think it's very rare that we will look at a client's pricing and say, you are significantly overpriced. It's not unheard of. We've certainly seen those fill patterns where no one's buying in the front of the orchestra. The top price tickets are left completely alone, and everyone's buying in the back of the balcony or the rear of the hall. But those are the exceptions and not the common examples. More likely, when something seems off with pricing, it's really an opportunity for a strategic discount or a segmented message to activate a portion of the audience. Um, so yes, it will. There are those recommendations in there, but they're less frequent.
Another one came in. Will roadmap for Vivian include an automated feature that will adjust prices without user approvals? I think the answer to that is possibly. It's not it's not coming immediately. And we at JCA have always kind of felt it's important to have the human in the loop, like Jonathan said, like that is an important factor. Um, so I could see, maybe down the road that we will add an automated feature, but right now it's if you want to just go ahead and accept the recommended prices, I think it's 3 clicks to hit accept all and then
Yep,
commit. So you can do it pretty quickly, but it does require a human to actually make the changes. Um, I could see that changing, but not in the immediate future.
great. Give us just one more moment here if any last questions trickle in. Uh, with smarter at jcainc.com is also up on the slide. If you think of a question after the webinar, feel free to email that to us and that will find its way to me and Jennifer. We'll be happy to continue the conversation. All right, and we are at 12:50, so I will wrap us up here. Just want to say thank you so much to everyone for your time, for your excellent questions. We hope we've given you some insights into revenue management strategy that you can take away and start using at your organization. And we'd love to continue the conversation with you as you start using AI in your revenue management. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.